I always thought Christmas night was supposed to be peaceful, maybe even sacred. But last night, just after 11:47, my wife reached for my hand with a kind of trembling I hadn't felt from her in years. "John, I need you to see something," she whispered. She slid a tiny black USB into my palm, cold, heavier than it should have been. "Please, don't hate me when you watch it." Her voice cracked, and before I could ask a single question, she said, "They lied to us, John. All of them. Christmas had always meant two things in our house: the last slice of my mother's cranberry pie and a soft argument between my wife, Elaine, and our daughter, Sarah, about who wrapped gifts better. But this year something felt off the moment I stepped inside. The tree lights were blinking unevenly, only half of them lit, and Elaine kept glancing at me like she expected me to break. She didn't sit beside me on the couch the way she usually did after dinner. Instead, she stood by the fireplace, rubbing her hands together like she was trying to warm something deeper than her skin. When she finally walked over and took my hand, her fingers were ice cold. "John," she said softly, "I need to tell you something before anything else happens." I looked up, confused, because her eyes weren't scared, they were devastated. She pulled that small USB from her sweater pocket and pressed it into my palm. "Please don't say anything yet. Just listen." I'd known Elaine since we were 19. She never asked for silence. She always talked through everything. Arguments, decisions, grief, everything. But now she was begging me to stay quiet. My stomach tightened as I asked, "What is this?" She swallowed hard, her throat visibly trembling. "Someone dropped it in our mailbox this morning. No note, no name, just this sumper." She looked to the hallway where Sarah's room was and lowered her voice even more. "John, you need to prepare yourself." Before I could press her, the house made a soft popping sound like old wood settling under the cold. But it didn't feel like settling. It felt like a warning. I stood up slowly. "What do you mean, prepare myself? What's on here?" She turned away, both hands on her forehead. "I watched it," she said. "Only once, that was enough." Her shoulders shook, but she didn't cry. Elaine never cried, unless she was truly broken. The footage? It changes everything. About Christmas Eve. About what happened 10 years ago. About what we thought happened. Those words made my blood run cold. 10 years ago was the year we lost our son, Michael. He was 22. He'd been driving home from his night shift when his car slid off Route 87. At least that's what the state trooper told us. I remember the snow, the call, the hospital lights, the shaking hands signing paperwork I didn't understand. I remember the funeral, Sarah clutching my arm, Elaine collapsing on the pew. 10 years. And suddenly this tiny plastic drive had the power to reopen the wound we'd somehow survived. I took a deep breath. "Elaine," I whispered, "are you telling me this has something to do with him?" Unsaid. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she placed her hand on my chest, like she used to when she needed me to stay calm. "Just promise you won't watch it alone." Her voice was barely audible. "I can't go through that again by myself." I didn't want to sit in the living room with the tree half lit, the ornaments swaying whenever the heater kicked on. So I walked to my office, the one room in the house that still felt like mine. The old wooden desk was covered in bills, a few Christmas cards we hadn't opened yet, and my laptop. Elaine followed 3 steps behind me, her breathing uneven. When I sat down, she stood beside me instead of sitting, one hand gripping the back of the chair. I plugged in the USB. No folder names, no timestamps. Just one file. A simple title. December 24th, Michelle. My heart stopped. "Elaine, who gave you this?" She covered her mouth. "I don't know, but they knew our son's name. They knew the date. They knew where to send it." She closed her eyes tightly, tears finally slipping out. "John, whatever you thought happened that night. The video." A sudden voice cut through the moment. Mom? Dad? Sarah? She stood in the doorway, holding her phone. Why's the Wi-Fi down? She looked at the screen. Dad, did you unplug the router? I glanced at the modem lights. They were off. Completely off. But I hadn't touched anything. Before I could respond, the house went darker. Not pitch black. Just a soft dimming, like someone turned down the power slowly. Deliberately, Elaine stepped back. John, someone's here. I listened. The house was silent. Too silent. Then a faint crunch outside. Snow being stepped on. I stood up to check the window, but Sarah grabbed my arm. Dad, there's someone in the backyard. Elaine reached for me. John, don't open the curtain. I froze. Not because of the sound, but because the file on the laptop suddenly started playing on its own. The screen flickered for a moment, and then I saw it. A snowy highway, headlights. A date in the corner, December 24th, 10 years ago. And then, a voice in the video. Not Michael's, a man. Calm. Almost rehearsed. He didn't die the way they told you. Elaine gasped and grabbed my hand so tightly it hurt. I leaned closer, my heart pounding. The man in the video stepped forward, his face still hidden in the dark. We tried to warn him, he said. But your son, he found something he shouldn't have. And they came for him hours before the crash. The screen glitched. A second voice whispered, distorted but unmistakable. John, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. My son's voice. I felt my knees go weak. And then the video cut to black. For a long moment, none of us moved. The blank screen reflected our faces back at us. 3 pale silhouettes frozen in a room that suddenly felt too small for the weight inside it. I could hear Sarah breathing fast behind me. Short, uneven breaths. The kind she used to have as a child when nightmares followed her into morning. Elaine's hand shook against mine, her nails digging into my skin like she was trying not to fall apart. Dad, what was that? Sarah whispered. Her voice barely steady. I didn't answer because I didn't have an answer. My son's voice, his actual voice, had spoken through that file. 10 years after we buried him. 10 years after we laid a wreath on a grave we were told held his body. 10 years after I walked through that hospital hallway, numb, and signed a form I couldn't bring myself to reread. Elaine leaned closer to the screen. John, replay it. I reached for the mouse. But before I could click, the cursor moved by itself. All 3 of us jumped back. The file opened again, but didn't restart from the beginning. It jumped to a different segment, one we hadn't seen, a dark parking lot. A row of dim streetlights, then a shaky figure running across the frame, panting, glancing behind him. For a split second, the camera caught his face. It was Michael. Alive. Terrified. Elaine's knees buckled, and she caught the edge of the desk to keep herself from falling. Oh my God, John, that's him. That's our boy. Tears poured down her cheeks, as if they'd been waiting 10 years to escape. Sarah covered her mouth, her phone slipping from her hand and hitting the carpet without a sound. My heart hammered so violently I thought it would burst. This can't be real, I whispered. But it was. Every instinct in me knew it was. The way he ran. The slight tilt of his head. The small scar above his eyebrow. From when he fell off his bike at 14. That was my son. Running for his life. The video jittered again. Michael ducked behind a dumpster. Breathing hard, whispering something into a phone. The audio was weak. But I leaned in, straining. Dad? If anything happens, go to static swallowed the rest. Then the screen turned black again. This time, a new text appeared. Stop looking. I pushed back from the desk, as though the screen had burned me. Sarah stepped away, shaking. Dad, who's doing this? Why would someone send us that? I didn't know. Nothing made sense. But one thing was certain, someone didn't want us digging. Someone who had access to footage from the night our son supposedly died. Someone who knew how to manipulate the USB remotely. Someone who had stepped into our backyard tonight. The crunching in the snow outside came again, closer this time. Elaine clutched my arm. "John, please don't go out there. Whatever this is, it's not safe." But I wasn't thinking of myself. I was thinking of Michael's face in that video. The fear, the urgency in his voice. The unfinished sentence go to, what had he been trying to tell me? And why had that part been cut? Sarah picked up her phone. "I'm calling 911. Before she could dial, her screen flickered and went black. She tried again. Nothing. No signal. "Dad. My phone isn't working." I grabbed my own. "Dead. Not low battery, completely dead. Like someone cut the signal from the outside. The power dimming. The Wi-Fi down. Our phone's dead. Someone in the backyard." None of this was random. The house creaked behind us, and I turned sharply. The kitchen light flickered once, twice, then shut off entirely. We were standing in a dim hallway, lit only by the glow of my laptop screen. Sarah whispered, "Dad, I'm scared." I put a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. Stay close to your mother." The laptop pinged, a quiet, sharp sound, like an incoming email. I turned back toward it. A new folder had appeared on the screen. No one had touched the mouse. The folder was titled, "Don't Trust Them." Elaine took a shaky step back. "John, stop. Please don't open it." I hesitated, my hand hovering over the trackpad. Then another crunch outside. Closer. Too close. A shadow passed by the office window. Tall, deliberate, unhurried. The kind of movement that wasn't afraid of being seen. My pulse shot through my whole body. If someone was outside and controlling our power, our phones, and our internet, then they weren't sending a warning. They were preparing for something. I swallowed hard and clicked the folder. Inside was another video file. This one labeled, "The Night Before." Elaine whispered, "John, please don't." I opened it. The screen showed a familiar room. A small waiting area. White walls. A police station. 2 officers stood behind a counter, speaking with someone whose back was to the camera. He shifted slightly, and the camera caught the side of his face. My stomach dropped. It was the same state trooper who told us our son died in the crash. The same face I'd stared at for hours while he explained the accident. The same man who placed a hand on my shoulder and told me he didn't suffer. And now, he was in a police station the night before the crash, speaking to someone in a dark coat whose hood was pulled low. The audio cracked and then sharpened suddenly, capturing fragments. "Tomorrow night. Make it look clean. No loose ends. The boy knows too much." The boy. My son. Elaine sobbed quietly behind me, her hand trembling against her mouth. Sarah stood completely still, as if her body couldn't decide whether to run or collapse. I leaned closer, gripping the edges of the desk. This is a setup. They staged it. They staged the entire crash. And then the video's final frame froze. A face turned toward the camera. Not the officer. Not my son. But a woman, middle-aged, cold eyes. Familiar in a way I couldn't place. The screen zoomed slowly, automatically. Her face filled the frame. Then a text flashed beneath it. "Ask your wife who she is." Elaine gasped, violently, staggering back like she'd been struck. "John, no. John, I don't." "I didn't." Her voice broke into pieces. I turned toward her, confused. "Elaine, what is this? Do you know her?" Her hands shook so badly she had to brace herself against the wall. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the woman on the screen, the one tied to my son's so-called accident, was someone from Elaine's past. Someone she'd never told me about, and outside the footsteps finally reached the back door. I didn't move. For a few seconds I couldn't. My legs felt locked in place, like they suddenly forgot how to work. Maggie stood there, her breath coming quicker now. Her fingers curled into the blanket on her lap. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for something, an answer, a reaction, maybe even permission. I don't know. I just knew she was terrified, and the fear in her eyes was worse than the fear rising in me. "David," she whispered. "Please say something." Her voice cracked, and that was enough to snap me back into myself. I stepped forward and sat at the edge of the bed, careful not to startle her. "You think someone is watching us?" I asked. My voice sounded thin, like someone else's. She nodded once, sharply. I could see her hands trembling. "For months," she said. "I didn't want to tell you because I thought, maybe I was imagining it." She touched her temple. "Early onset, remember. Sometimes I can't trust what I see anymore." She took a shaky breath. "But this isn't my mind playing tricks." I reached for her hand, and she grabbed it like she was drowning. Her grip was surprising, strong, almost desperate. "Show me," I said. "Show me what's on the USB." I could feel her pulse hammering against my palm. She shook her head fiercely. "Not yet." She squeezed harder. "David, you need to understand what you're walking into before you press play." That made something cold slide down my spine. "What does that mean?" I asked. She looked toward the bedroom door, as if expecting someone to burst through at any moment. "It means," she whispered, "that whatever you see, it won't be something you can unsee. And once you know it, there's no going back. They don't let people walk away with this kind of knowledge." The way she said "they" made my stomach tighten. "Who are they?" I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It took a long moment before she managed to speak. "People who don't want the truth coming out. Not about Christmas Eve. Not about what really happened that night." I stared at her. "Christmas Eve?" She nodded. I felt my heartbeat thudding harder. "Maggie, what happened on Christmas Eve?" Her lower lip trembled. "It wasn't an accident." I blinked. What wasn't? She swallowed. "The fire." Suddenly I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. "Maggie, what fire are you talking about?" She looked confused for a moment, like she couldn't believe I didn't know. "The fire at the community center, the one that killed 2 people. I felt my whole body go rigid. "That was ruled an electrical malfunction," I said quietly. Everyone accepted that. Her eyes filled with something like pity. Everyone accepted what they were told. I sat back a little, trying to steady myself. Memories of that Christmas Eve flickered in my mind. Sirens, smoke rising behind the elementary school, neighbors standing outside in pajamas, firefighters pushing people back. We'd been on the other side of town visiting friends, but we'd driven past the scene on our way home. It had been chaos, but it never occurred to me that there was more to it. "Why would you have footage of that?" I asked, almost whispering the question because suddenly the room felt too small, too tight. Maggie looked down at her hands. "Because I was there before the fire started," she said. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean you were there?" She shook her head, tears spilling now. "I didn't tell you. I should have told you. I didn't want to worry you. And then after my diagnosis," her voice broke. "I thought you'd think I imagined the whole thing." Slowly, painfully, the pieces started to shift in my mind, not fitting yet, but moving. "Why were you there?" I asked, keeping my voice gentle because she looked like she might shatter. She wiped her cheeks with trembling hands. "I was dropping off the donations early. The toys, the coats. They asked for volunteers, remember?" I nodded slowly. She continued. "When I got there, there were 2 men in the back hallway. I didn't recognize them. They weren't volunteers. They weren't staff, and they were arguing." She squeezed her eyes shut, as if trying to block out the memory. One of them said, "We don't have to do this tonight." And the other one said, "Orders are orders. We're cleaning it up before the new year." A wave of nausea hit me so suddenly, I had to steady myself with the nightstand. "Maggie," I said quietly. What were they talking about cleaning up?" She shook her head. "I didn't know. I still don't. But something about the way they said it. It scared me." I backed away. "But I knocked over a cart. They heard me." She took a sharp breath. "One of them came after me." My whole chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me this?" I asked. She gave me a helpless look. "Because I didn't get away clean." She reached for the drawer in the nightstand with shaky fingers. "Because I dropped my phone. It was recording a video for the volunteer check-in app. I didn't mean to start it. She pulled the USB out slowly and placed it on the blanket between us. "They found it. They knew someone recorded them." I stared at the small black drive like it was ticking. "So how did you get this footage?" I asked. She laughed weakly, the sound thin and broken. "Because they sent it to me." My heart lurched. "What do you mean they sent it to you?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. 3 days after the fire, no message. No note, just the file. And a warning on the screen, "Keep quiet." She looked at me with wide, fragile eyes. "David, someone wants me to have this. Someone wants me to be afraid. And I am. I've been terrified for a year." I felt my throat tighten. "Why tell me now?" I asked. She looked at the clock on the wall, then back at me. "Because they called again," she whispered. "Tonight, right before you came to bed." She pointed at her phone. "Blocked number. They said, 'We know he's home.'" For a moment everything inside me froze. A cold, hollow, ringing silence filled my head. "Maggie," I said slowly, forcing my breathing to stay steady. "Did they say anything else?" She nodded once. "They said, 'It's time.'" My mouth went dry. "Time for what?" Her face crumpled. "I don't know." Then she reached for my hand again, gripping it with both of hers. "David, please, don't press play unless you're ready. This doesn't just involve me. Whoever they are, they know about you now too." I looked at the USB again. It seemed impossibly small for something that could dismantle a year of lies, or destroy our lives. Maybe both. I took a slow breath. "Maggie, no matter what's on this, we face it together." She let out a trembling sob and nodded. I stood, crossed the room, and picked up my laptop from the desk. My hands didn't feel steady, but I forced myself to keep moving. I sat beside her again, opened the lid, and plugged in the USB. The drive name appeared instantly, as if it had been waiting. One file. A single video. No title, just a timestamp. December 24th, 11:46 p.m. I clicked it. The screen went black for a moment. Then a faint hallway came into view. Maggie's breathing hitched beside me. Then a man's voice whispered on the recording, "Is she still in the building?" And another replied, "Yes. Get rid of her." I felt Maggie's hand clamp onto my arm. And then the camera turned toward a shadow moving toward the exit. And it wasn't Maggie. It was someone else. Someone I recognized. Someone who shouldn't have been there. My breath caught. "Maggie," I whispered. "That's my brother." She nodded slowly. "I know." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The room felt unnaturally still, like the air itself was holding its breath. My brother, my older brother James, was on the screen, grainy and half-lit, stepping into the hallway of the community center as if he belonged there. I hadn't seen him in years. Not really. We talked on Christmases, birthdays, the occasional phone call when he needed money, or when he wanted to pretend we still had the kind of relationship we'd once had. But this was different. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that fire. He'd told me he spent Christmas Eve with a friend in Portland. He'd said it casually, like it was nothing, like it was the most normal thing in the world, and I had believed him. I believed everything he said back then, because he was my brother. He was the one I'd looked up to when we were kids. The one I'd followed around like a shadow, even after life spun him in the wrong direction, A part of me always held on to the version of him I remembered, strong, stubborn, protective. The version who once carried me home when I broke my arm falling off the fence behind Mrs. Halston's yard. But the man on that screen didn't look like the brother I remembered. His shoulders were tense, his movements sharp, almost secretive. He kept glancing over his shoulder like he was waiting for someone to catch him. Maggie was watching the screen and watching me at the same time. She looked terrified to see my reaction. "David," she whispered. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." I shook my head slowly, my eyes glued to the footage. How is he involved in this?" My voice sounded rough, almost foreign. She placed her hand gently on my arm. "I don't know. I swear I don't. I only know what I saw that night." The video crackled, and the camera shifted abruptly as if Maggie had tried to hide the phone behind something. The two unidentified men walked past, their voices still hushed, but clear enough to make my skin crawl. "We handle her first," one said. "Then we torch the rest. Orders are orders." The camera caught just enough of their faces to give me a sickening feeling I'd seen them before, somewhere I couldn't quite place. Maybe at the grocery store, maybe around town, maybe nowhere at all, but they had that look. The kind of look that made your instincts start screaming even if your brain didn't know why. Then the camera turned again and caught James. He was standing by the exit, peering out the window like he was checking to make sure someone hadn't arrived. The expression on his face wasn't fear exactly. It was something else. Pressure, stress, guilt maybe, or the kind of tension that builds when someone is in far deeper than they ever meant to be. "What was he doing?" I whispered. "Why was he there?" Maggie's fingers tightened around mine. "He wasn't alone." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She swallowed. "Watch." The video jumped, fuzzed, then refocused. A woman stepped into the frame beside my brother. I leaned forward instinctively, my breath catching halfway up my throat. It was impossible. No, it couldn't be. But the longer I stared, the more undeniable it became. "Is that?" I didn't finish the sentence. Maggie nodded slowly. "Yes." I felt a dull pressure building behind my ribs. That's Rachel, my niece, my brother's daughter, 22 years old. The one who used to sit on my shoulders at 4th of July parades. The one who brought Maggie flowers when she got her diagnosis. The one who still called me Uncle Dave, even when she started college, and everyone else called me Sir. "What the hell were they doing there?" I whispered. Again, more to myself than to Maggie. She didn't answer. The video showed Rachel talking quickly to my brother. Her movements were frantic, her hands gesturing like she was pleading with him. My brother kept shaking his head, looking around nervously. Then faintly, the recording captured her voice. "Dad, please, this isn't right. We can't be part of this." He hissed something back through clenched teeth. "You don't understand. It's too late. We don't have a choice." My entire body went rigid. Maggie looked at me with wide eyes. "David, do you know what he meant?" I shook my head numbly. "No. God, no. I don't know anything anymore." The men reappeared, their footsteps echoing in the hallway. Rachel backed away, her face pale, terrified. My brother stepped in front of her instinctively, shielding her. For a split second, I felt something familiar, something painfully human. My brother still protecting his daughter. But then one of the men said something that made my blood freeze. "She saw us. Get rid of both of them." My heart slammed so hard it felt like the room shook. My niece grabbed my brother's sleeve. "Dad, run," she whispered. The footage jerked violently as the phone was pressed tighter against something. Maggie had been hiding, watching, recording, running. The sound of footsteps, shouts, then a sharp crack echoed through the speakers, like someone was slammed against a wall. I stopped the video. I couldn't breathe. Maggie's voice came out soft and careful. "David, you okay?" I stared at my reflection in the dark screen, feeling something inside me unraveling in slow motion. "No. I whispered. I'm not. I stood up, pacing the length of the room because sitting still felt impossible. Why didn't he tell me any of this? Why didn't he come to me? Why? Why did he lie to me? Maggie watched me with a look that broke my heart. Maybe he couldn't tell you, she said gently. Maybe someone was forcing him. I stopped pacing and looked at her. You think he was involved in something criminal? She hesitated. I don't know, but whatever he was in, it was bigger than him. Bigger than all of us. I rubbed my face hard. And you've been carrying this alone for a year? She nodded. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I was scared, David. And I thought if I forgot something, if my mind got worse, I'd lose the truth. So I tried to hide it until I couldn't anymore. I sat beside her again and pulled her into my arms. She clung to me silently. After a moment I whispered, "We need to finish the video." She shook her head fiercely. "David, you're already overwhelmed, I need to know." I said, my voice was steady now, even though nothing inside me was. If my brother was involved, if Rachel was in danger, I need to know everything. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she nodded slowly, wiped her eyes, and handed me the laptop again. I pressed play. The video resumed with chaotic movement. Doors slamming, someone shouting. The camera captured a blurred figure, my brother grabbing Rachel's arm and pulling her toward a back exit. The two men were close behind, their voices low and urgent. "Don't let them get out." Another voice answered, "Then seal it. We do it now." A sudden burst of light filled the frame, bright, unnatural, flickering, fire. It spread along the ceiling, like something alive. The alarms started blaring. My niece screamed. The video shook as Maggie ran. Then through the smoke, the camera captured one last thing before the footage ended. My brother turned back toward the hallway where the men stood. He looked straight into the camera, straight at Maggie, but also, I realized with a jolt, straight through time, right at me. His face was streaked with ash, twisted with fear, but also something else. Regret. Resolve. And then he mouthed something. 3 words. 3 unmistakable words that punched the air from my lungs. Tell him everything. The screen went black, and the room fell silent, except for one sound. The sound of Maggie's phone vibrating on the nightstand. Another blocked number. The phone kept vibrating, a low insect-like buzz that cut through the silence and settled somewhere deep in my spine. Maggie stared at it as if it were a live wire. I didn't move at first. I just watched the screen pulse again and again with blocked caller. It was the same label that had called earlier, the one that made Maggie's hands shake. She looked at me, her eyes wide and terrified. "David, don't pick it up, please." Her voice cracked on the last word. But something in me shifted when I saw her fear. A part of me had been frozen for the last hour. Shocked, confused, grieving all over again. But now I felt something else rising. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Something steadier. "If they want to talk," I said quietly, "they're going to talk to me." I reached for the phone. Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, surprisingly firm for how small she looked next to me. "David, no. If they know you've seen the video, if they know what I recorded," she broke off, looking toward the door as if someone might already be standing on the other side of it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They could come here." I squeezed her hand gently. "They won't hurt you. They won't hurt us." It sounded braver than I felt, but something in her eyes softened anyway. The call almost stopped ringing as my finger hovered over the screen. I answered it on the last vibration. "Hello?" I kept my voice calm, steady. There was nothing for a moment, just faint static. Then a voice, deep, controlled, unfamiliar, slid through the speaker. "Mr. Harlow?" My heart clenched. My last name, not my first, Not my wife's. They knew exactly who they were calling. "Who is this?" I asked. A pause. A long one. Then, "We need to talk." Maggie covered her mouth, her breathing shallow. I stood, turning slightly so she couldn't hear every word. "No," I said. "You need to explain why men were threatening my niece, why they were in that building, and why my brother was there." The voice exhaled, almost annoyed. "This isn't the place for that conversation." "What conversation are we having then?" I asked. Another silence. Then, "Mr. Harlow, someone is coming to your house tonight. You need to leave now." A cold ripple shot down my spine. "Who?" I demanded. "But," a cold ripple shot down my spine. "Who?" I demanded. "We'll discuss that, when I know you're safe." I didn't realize I was gripping the phone so tightly until my hands started to ache. "You're going to tell me right now," I said. "Or this call is over." The voice grew softer, somehow more dangerous. "If you stay, you won't make it to morning." My mouth went dry. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, unsure if I should throw it, call back, or pretend none of this was happening. Maggie touched my arm, her voice barely a whisper. "What did they say?" I swallowed. "They told us to leave. Now." Her face crumpled. "David, I don't want to run again. I can't. Not with my memory." Her eyes shimmered, and she pressed her fist to her mouth to keep it steady. "I'll forget something important. I'll forget directions, or medications, or where we're going. I'll slow you down." I cupped her face gently. "You're not slowing me down. You're why I'm moving at all." She let out a shaky breath that sounded half like a cry. "What if it's already too late?" she whispered. I glanced toward the window. For the first time, I noticed how quiet the street was. Too quiet. Our neighbors' houses still had their Christmas lights glowing softly, but no one was outside. No cars passing. No dogs barking. It was a small thing, but it made my stomach twist. "We're leaving," I said firmly. "Right now." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay." We packed quickly. Coats, keys, her medication, a folder with her medical records. She insisted on bringing everywhere now. I grabbed my phone, the USB, and the laptop. I didn't know where we were going yet, but anywhere was safer than here. As I locked the door behind us, Maggie suddenly paused on the porch. "David, look." I followed her gaze. A black sedan was parked across the street. No headlights, no interior light, no movement, just a dark shape facing our house. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Back inside," I whispered. But before we could turn, a door opened on the sedan's far side. A figure stepped out. Tall, bundled in a heavy coat, face shadowed. Another door opened. A second figure emerged. They didn't hurry. They didn't talk. They just stood there for a moment, as if making sure we saw them. My hand tightened around Maggie's. She whispered, "David, what do we do?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Not yet. One of the men lifted his hand and tapped something against his palm. A phone. My phone buzzed in my pocket at the exact same moment, making me jump. I pulled it out slowly. Blocked caller. Maggie's breath hitched. "Don't," she whispered. But I did. The same voice from earlier spoke immediately. "Mr. Harlow, do not go back inside. Do not approach the men across the street. Walk to your car. Get in. Drive south. Now." My pulse hammered. "Who are the men?" I whispered. "They're not with us," the caller said. "And if they reach you, this ends tonight." "What ends?" I demanded. "What is happening? Why was my brother involved?" The voice lowered to a tone that felt like a warning and a plea at the same time. "I will explain everything, but if you don't leave right now, the next person they visit will be your niece." A sharp, sick twist went through me. "Rachel, where is she?" I asked, immediately. "That depends on you." I closed my eyes, jaw tight. "If you're lying, I'm not, the voice said. And you know that. I didn't know anything anymore. Except one thing, whoever these people were, whatever they wanted, the danger wasn't theoretical anymore. It was standing across the street. I pulled Maggie closer. Get in the truck, I whispered. Don't look at them. Don't stop. She nodded, swallowing hard. We moved quickly down the steps, our breath puffing into the cold night as we crossed the driveway. The men didn't follow. They didn't move at all. They just watched, like they were making sure we understood they could reach us any time they wanted. I opened the truck door for Maggie. She climbed in, trembling, holding her coat tight around her shoulders. I got in on the driver's side, slammed the door and turned the key. The engine coughed awake. One of the men stepped onto the street. I floored the gas. We shot forward onto the road, tires skidding on thin frost. Maggie clutched the dashboard. Where are we going? I kept my eyes on the road. Away, I said. Far away. My phone buzzed again. I didn't answer. Not yet. Not until I could breathe. Not until I knew we weren't being followed. But 10 minutes down the highway, Maggie pointed shakily through the rear window. David, Jay whispered. They're behind us. I checked the mirror, headlights. The same black sedan, getting closer. At first, I told myself it could have been anyone, just a car on the same highway, a coincidence. But the longer I watched those headlights in the rearview mirror, the less I believed that they held the road too tightly, matched my speed too easily. Every time I shifted lanes, they shifted with me. Maggie saw it too. She didn't say anything at first, but her hand gripped the edge of her seat so hard her knuckles turned pale. David, she whispered. Are they? Yes, I said quietly. They are. She shut her eyes for a moment, like she was bracing for some impact that hadn't happened yet. Her voice came out thin. What do they want from us? I tightened my grip on the wheel. I don't know, but I did know one thing. They weren't trying to talk. My phone buzzed again. Same number. Same message on the screen. Blocked caller. This time I answered before Maggie could stop me. A breath filled the line, controlled, calculated. Mr. Harlow, the voice said calmly, you need to slow down. I almost laughed. You're watching us? You're not making this easy, the voice replied. Slow down. Maintain 55. Do not exit the highway. I checked the mirror again. The sedan was still behind us. Too close. You told me to run, I snapped. Now you want me to slow down? Yes. Why? The voice's answer came quietly, chillingly. Because if you keep pushing them, they'll do something stupid. I swallowed. They weren't sent by you. No, the man said. And if they get close enough, they won't hesitate. Won't hesitate to what? Won't hesitate to what? I demanded. Silence. Then, did you watch the footage to the end? I saw what Maggie recorded, I said. No, the voice replied. You didn't see the rest. Someone else recorded something that night. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. My chest tightened. Who? I'll explain when you're safe, the voice repeated, as if reading lines from the same script he'd used earlier. For now, slow down. Let them think you're calming. If you escalate, they escalate. The headlights behind us drew closer, almost touching the back of my truck. Maggie gasped, clutching the handle above her door. David, please slow down. I eased my foot off the gas. The truck dropped from 65 to 60 to 55. The sedan backed off just enough to sit at a measured distance. Good, the voice murmured. Now listen carefully. Why should I trust you? I shot back. Because your wife is alive, the man said, his tone like a knife sliding under my ribs. Because your niece is alive, and because the men behind you do not want either of those things to stay true. My throat tightened. Where is Rachel? Another pause. Waiting. For you. Where when you're safe? He said it again. When you're safe, like it was the only phrase he'd been trained to use. I took a breath. At least tell me why they're following us. Because that video your wife recorded wasn't just evidence, he said. It was leverage, and someone lost control of it. Maggie looked at me, her eyes wide and glistening. They want it back, she whispered. The voice answered her, as if he'd heard her clearly. They want it destroyed. They want every copy erased, and they want anyone who's seen it gone. The word hung in the air like smoke. Gone. I felt my stomach drop. Why now? I asked. Why a year later? Why Christmas? That wasn't the plan, he said. Something changed. Someone panicked. And when people like them panic, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The sedan edged forward again. Not enough to hit us. Just enough to remind us they were still there. Maggie whispered, "David, we need to get off this road." I agreed. Every instinct I had screamed to turn off, hide, lose them. But the voice spoke again, firmer this time. "Do not exit. They have someone waiting if you do." Cold spread through my chest. Waiting where? Every off-ramp for the next 20 miles. "How do you know that?" I demanded. Another pause. Long, heavy. Because once they were mine to command. I went still. Maggie covered her mouth. Eyes wide. The voice exhaled slowly. "That's all I can say for now. Keep driving south until I tell you to turn. You're safer on the road than anywhere else." But even as he said it, I glanced into the mirror. The sedan's lights were swaying. Too close again. Then something happened that made Maggie cry out. A second car pulled onto the highway behind them. Another black sedan. Same shape, same speed, same behavior. "David," she whispered, her fingers digging into my arm. "There are two of them now." My pulse hammered. I lifted the phone back to my ear. "There's another car." "I know," the man said calmly. "Do not slow further. Maintain speed." "Who are they?" I asked. "A different faction," he said. "More reckless." "Reckless how?" "They won't wait for instructions." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "So what do we do?" The voice lowered. "Urgent. There's a way station ahead on your right. It will look closed. It's not. When I say now, you'll turn in. Don't hesitate." "Why?" "Because the second car won't follow you inside. The first might, but that's the one I sent." The air seemed to thin around me. "I thought you said they weren't yours." "They're not," he repeated quietly. "But I have leverage over one of them. Enough to make him hesitate," Maggie whispered. "David, I don't want to go in there." The headlights behind us brightened, almost blinding in the mirror. "Maggie," I whispered, my voice shaking, "we don't have a choice." The way station sign appeared ahead, dim, flickering, barely visible in the dark. "Get ready," the voice said. My palms were slick, my throat thick. "If this goes wrong, it won't," the voice said. "Not yet." I glanced at Maggie. She nodded, even though she looked terrified. The way station grew closer. "Not yet," the voice murmured. The first sedan suddenly sped up, closing the gap fast. "Not yet." The second car swerved sharply, as if preparing to box us in. "Not yet," I exhaled through my teeth. The station entrance flashed by. Now the voice said sharply, "Turn. Go, go." I jerked the wheel right. Maggie screamed. The truck shot off the highway. The tires skidded. The phone slipped from my hand. The headlights behind us veered. One car followed. The other didn't. The truck slammed through the metal barrier, and everything went white. The truck bounced against the barrier and lurched into the way station parking lot. Metal screeched. Tires smoked, and I slammed the wheel to regain control. Maggie screamed, clinging to the dashboard. The first sedan screeched behind us and skidded to a stop at the edge of the lot, engines revving like predators. I could see movement inside. The men weren't hesitating anymore. They were stepping out, slow, deliberate, surveying the lot. Their coats were dark, faces shadowed. Every instinct in me screamed to run. But the way station wasn't open. No traffic. No exits. No cover. Just us and them. "David." "What now?" Maggie whispered, voice trembling. She pressed her face into her hands. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my own shaking. "We wait," I said. "We follow instructions. We stay calm." A harsh laugh cut through the cold night air. One of the men leaned against the hood of the sedan, watching us, smirking. "Going somewhere," he called. His voice carried across the lot, casual, mocking. "Or are you planning to hide in that tin can?" I gritted my teeth. I didn't answer. The voice on my phone buzzed again. "Blocked caller." I answered immediately, lifting it to my ear. "You made it," he said, calm, observant, like a chess master watching a pawn stumble. "We're trapped," I said quietly. "They're outside." "Good," the voice said. "Now listen carefully. You're going to get out of that lot without being harmed. There's a narrow back exit. South side, near the old maintenance garage. Drive slowly. Don't signal. Don't look at them directly. Once you're out, you'll have 2 miles before the highway. The first sedan won't follow. The second may. But that's where you'll need to accelerate." I glanced at Maggie. Her face was pale, her hands clenched in her lap. "David, are you sure we can trust him?" I didn't answer, because I didn't have a choice. Trust was the only thing left to cling to. I put the truck in gear. Inching forward, the sedan outside tilted its head as if studying us. Its engine purred low, threatening. My stomach sank. I felt Maggie's hand tighten around mine. "Stay low," I whispered. We moved slowly, inch by inch, toward the south end. The lot seemed to stretch endlessly, shadows shifting as the men stepped aside, watching, calculating. Every inch felt like an eternity. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Then the first sedan moved. A man stepped forward, trying to block the exit. I hesitated. My foot hovered over the accelerator. "Now," the voice hissed into the phone. I slammed my foot down. The truck surged forward, tires screaming. Maggie screamed again, clutching the dashboard. We barreled toward the exit, scraping past a pile of crates, the man at the sedan barely jumping aside in time. We hit the gravel road beyond the lot, sending dust and stones flying. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The first sedan stopped at the way station's edge, watching us leave. The second sedan, the reckless one, was behind us, gaining. "David, they're coming," Maggie yelled. I pressed down harder, gripping the wheel with white-knuckled force. "I know." The phone buzzed again. "Don't turn," the voice said. "Keep straight. Follow the road past the old mill. There's a clearing. They won't follow you there." I barely registered the words. The truck flew over bumps, tires skidding on frost. The headlights of the pursuing sedan glowed brighter with each second. I felt Maggie's body pressed against the seat beside me, trembling violently. The road twisted sharply. I took it wide, hugging the shoulder. The pursuing sedan swerved, almost clipping a tree, then corrected itself. I knew I couldn't let them get closer. Not tonight. Not after everything. "David, do something," Maggie screamed. I didn't have time for anything but reaction. I floored the accelerator. The truck lunged forward, snow kicking up behind us. I could hear the roar of the engine behind, the tires skidding. They weren't just following, they were hunting. Then the road opened into the clearing. The trees ended, revealing a small abandoned lot, overgrown, dark, with a rusted water tower leaning in the center. "Here," the voice said. "Go, hide by the tower. Don't stop until I tell you." I turned sharply, sliding the truck to the base of the tower. Maggie covered her eyes as we skidded to a stop behind it. I killed the engine. The night was suddenly quiet, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. The first sedan was gone. The second wasn't. Its headlights were dim now, distant, still on the road, scanning. Maggie whispered, "David, what now?" I swallowed hard. "We wait." The phone buzzed one last time. "Listen carefully," the voice said. "You're not safe until I tell you. Stay hidden. Someone may approach. Do not respond unless they use the code. The code is Christmas Eve." Maggie shivered beside me. "David, why does it have to be a code? Why can't it just be simple?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to admit the truth, that the people chasing us were part of something much bigger than us. Something that didn't care about Christmas, or family, or guilt. They cared about control. And if I was wrong, if I made one mistake, I could lose Maggie, Rachel, or both. A crunch of snow snapped me from my thoughts. I leaned forward slightly, peering into the dark lot beyond the trees. A figure emerged. Tall, purposeful, moving toward us. I whispered, "Maggie, remember the code. Christmas Eve." Her hands trembled. I remember." The figure slowed as it approached. Hands raised slightly. 1 step. 2 steps. I could see now it wasn't one of the black sedans. Not the men chasing us. It was a familiar face. The one I thought I'd never see again. The figure spoke in a whisper that carried over the cold night air. "David, Maggie, you have to trust me. It's worse than you think." And with that the figure stepped fully into the light. I froze. Because standing there, under the rusted water tower, with snow crunching beneath their boots, was someone I had thought dead, my brother, alive. And the look in his eyes told me everything we had run from had just begun. My chest tightened so suddenly I felt like I couldn't breathe. James, my brother, alive, standing there in the pale glow of the water tower, snow swirling around him. His coat was dusted with frost, his hair messy, his eyes wide and haunted. He held out a hand toward me, not in greeting, not in comfort, in warning. "David, you have to listen to me," he said, voice low and urgent. "There's no time. They know you're here. They're not leaving anyone alive tonight, if you make a mistake." Maggie gripped my arm, her voice trembling. "David, that's him? Your brother? He's alive?" I nodded slowly, but I didn't take my eyes off James. "Yes, but why? Why didn't you come back? Why didn't you call?" James shook his head sharply. "I couldn't. You don't understand. I was trapped. And what they made me do, David, I can't even begin to tell you over the phone. You need to move. Now." "Move where?" I asked, fear and disbelief mixing in my throat. "We can't just run blindly into the night." "Blindly?" he snapped. "You've already been followed, David. They've been watching you, watching her, watching everyone. Who gets in their way? If you stay here, they'll find you. And Rachel, she's in more danger than you know." Maggie whispered, "David, Rachel, she's still alive." I didn't answer her. I didn't know. But James's eyes were hard, unflinching. The kind of look that says, "I'm telling you the truth, even if it shatters everything. You need to trust me," he said. "I'm the only one who knows where she is." I swallowed hard. My hands tightened on Maggie's shoulders. "And the USB? The footage? Do they have it?" James shook his head. "No, but they know it exists. That's why they sent the cars. That's why they tried to follow you. And if they see you with it, they'll come for all of you." I looked at Maggie. Her face was pale, her lips pressed tightly together. "David, what do we do?" I glanced back at James. "Where do we go?" He exhaled sharply, glancing around the clearing. "There's a safe house, a place they don't know about. We can't stay here. Not a second longer. Get in the truck." I nodded, and quickly told Maggie to follow me. She climbed into the passenger seat, her hands still trembling. James followed. moving to the driver's side of my truck with a speed and purpose that reminded me of the brother I used to know, the one who could make decisions in a heartbeat, without hesitation. I started the engine slowly, keeping an eye on the tree line behind us. "Are we sure they won't follow us?" I asked James. "They might try," he admitted. "But this route they won't know it. Not unless they're already inside." I swallowed hard. "And if they are?" James's expression didn't change. "Then we run fast and hope for the best. But trust me, David. You need to hold on to the USB. Whoever gets that has power over everyone." Maggie looked at me, eyes wide. "David, what's on it? Why does everyone want it so badly?" I hesitated. I didn't want to admit the truth. Even I didn't fully understand it yet. Tolerance of something dangerous. Something that could destroy lives. Ours, too. James nodded. "Exactly. That's why they've been watching. And that's why we have to move now." No hesitation. The headlights of the second sedan appeared again in the distance, moving slowly but steadily toward us. I floored the accelerator. Snow kicked up behind the truck as we sped toward the back roads James had described. Maggie screamed as we swerved around a sharp bend. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind raced. Every instinct was screaming that we weren't going to make it out unscathed. James leaned forward from the passenger seat, pointing to a narrow dirt road disappearing into the trees. "Here," he said. "Take this. The clearing ends in a mile. Don't stop until you see the cabin." I turned sharply onto the dirt road, nearly losing control as the tires skidded on frost and loose gravel. Maggie clutched the dashboard. "David, they're still behind us." James leaned closer. "Doesn't matter. Not here. They can't follow you through this path. Too narrow, too risky. But you have to keep moving until the cabin. Don't slow down. Not once." The truck bounced over roots and rocks. I kept my hands tight on the wheel. Every crunch under the tires sounded like a gunshot in my ears. I glanced in the rearview mirror. No lights. The sedans weren't following. Relief surged through me, but it was short-lived. James had warned me to trust nothing. Finally, the dirt path opened into a small clearing. There it was, the cabin, small, unassuming, almost hidden beneath a canopy of pine trees. Smoke rose from the chimney. Warm light flickered from inside. "We're here," James said, voice low. "Inside quickly. Lock the doors. Do not open them for anyone who doesn't say the code." I killed the engine. Maggie jumped out first, trembling, and I followed with James at my side. We slammed the door shut behind us. I double-locked it. Maggie's face pressed against my arm. "David, do you think we're safe?" James shook his head slowly. "Not completely, not yet. But for now, yes, we can breathe." I exhaled heavily, gripping the USB tightly in my hand. The weight of it suddenly felt like everything we had been running from, everything at stake, compressed into a small black drive. Maggie's voice was barely audible. "David, what now?" I looked at James. "We figure out what happened that night. Why Rachel was there. Why those men were following us. And, most importantly, who we can trust." James nodded slowly. "Exactly. And you need to understand something, David. Whoever you thought was on your side, some of them aren't. Some of them are the reason all of this started. And they won't stop until they have everything." I swallowed hard, gripping the USB even tighter. "Even if it means killing us." James's expression didn't waver. "Even if it means killing all of us." Maggie shivered beside me. "David, I don't know if I can do this." I held her close. "Yes, you can. We're alive right now. That's what matters. We figure the rest out. Together." A sudden noise outside made all of us freeze. A branch snapping, footsteps crunching through snow. My pulse spiked. James whispered, "Stay low. Remember the code." I glanced at Maggie. She nodded. tears streaking her cheeks. And then from the other side of the cabin window, a shadow appeared. Slowly, deliberately, watching, waiting. Someone was coming for us. And I knew this was far from over. Because whoever was outside knew everything. And they weren't leaving without a fight. The shadow moved slowly along the frosted window, pausing just long enough for my breath to stop in my throat. Maggie curled closer to me, her hands trembling so hard I could feel the vibrations through my coat. James motioned for us to stay absolutely still, his finger pressed against his lips, his body tense like a coiled spring. The footsteps circled the cabin, deliberate, unhurried, as though whoever was out there already knew we were trapped inside. I counted the crunches, each one tightening the knot in my stomach. 4 steps, 5, 6. The shadow shifted again, this time closer to the door. James leaned toward me, whispering so quietly I barely caught the words. "Don't move unless I say so, and don't speak unless they use the code." "What's the code?" Maggie whispered, panic rising. James shook his head. "You'll know it. Trust me. Trust." The word echoed in my mind like a bruise being pressed. I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore. Not after Rachel's disappearance, not after the sedans, not after seeing my brother alive, after 12 years of believing he was dead. The doorknob rattled sharply. Twice. 3 times. Then, silence. My heart hammered so violently I thought whoever was out there could hear it through the logs, and then came the knock. Slow, rhythmic. 3 taps, pause. 2 taps, pause, 1 tap. Maggie's nails dug into my arm. "David, what does that mean?" Before I could answer, a voice spoke from the other side of the door. Calm, too calm. "David, open up. It's me." My entire body froze. It was Rachel. Maggie gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. James's eyes widened, not with relief, but with something colder, something closer to fear. "That's not her," he whispered sharply. "They're using recordings, playing her voice. Do not open that door." But it was her. I knew Rachel's voice better than I knew my own breath, the slight rasp, the careful enunciation she'd developed after years of trying to prove herself to everyone around her. The way she said my name, half affection, half warning. Another knock. More urgent this time. "Dad, please. They're coming. I don't have much time." My knees nearly buckled. "Rachel?" James grabbed my sleeve. "Stop. You don't know what they've done. They could be forcing her, or mimicking her. You open that door, and we're dead." I wanted to believe him. I did. But grief does something strange when hope suddenly appears at the door. It clouds reason. It rearranges priorities. It whispers that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare could end if you take one small step forward. I stood unable to help myself. "Rachel, is it really you?" She answered immediately. "Yes. Dad, please, let me in. My hands are freezing. They took everything from me. I need you." James stepped directly in front of the door, blocking it with his body. "David, if you open this, you destroy everything we've been fighting for. You need to listen, right now. Rachel isn't supposed to be here." Maggie's voice was faint, barely more than breath. "David, we need to be sure." I swallowed hard. "Rachel, what happened the night you disappeared?" A pause, a long one. "Too long. Then I'll explain inside." "Please, I can't out here." "Dad, open the door." My stomach dropped. Rachel was quick, smart, never hesitated with details. A pause. That long wasn't like her. James leaned in close. "Ask her something only she would know." I nodded slowly. "Rachel, what did you write on the birthday card you gave me when you turned 10? Again, silence. But shorter this time. "I don't know, Dad. That was years ago." "Please, no," I whispered. Rachel would have remembered. Her voice sharpened. "Dad, open. the door. Every syllable hit like a hammer. And suddenly the tone wasn't pleading anymore. It was commanding, cold. James braced himself, lowering his stance. Get ready. They're going to try something. The handle jerked violently. Maggie screamed. I reached for her, pulling her close as the shadow outside lunged against the door hard enough to shake the hinges. David, the voice shouted. Not Rachel's anymore. A man's, deep, angry. Open the door. A heavy thud. Then another. James grabbed a chair and jammed it under the doorknob. Back away, both of you. Now, the pounding intensified, echoing through the cabin like thunder. Then suddenly it stopped. Everything went quiet, eerily quiet. No footsteps. No voices. No wind, Maggie whispered. Where did they go? James shook his head. They didn't go. They're repositioning. Before I could ask what that meant, a sharp crack sounded from the back of the cabin, the unmistakable splintering of wood. They're breaking in, James said. Move. To the cellar. Now, I grabbed Maggie's hand, and we rushed toward the small trapdoor in the corner. James pulled it open and waved us down. Go, hurry, don't look back. Maggie descended quickly. I followed, clutching the USB so tightly my knuckles ached. James was the last to enter. But before he climbed down, he whispered something to me. David, if I don't make it, don't trust the first person who offers help. Trust the one who asks the right questions. I didn't understand. James, wait. But he slammed the trap door shut above us. In the darkness of the cellar, Maggie and I pressed against each other, listening as the floorboards above groaned and footsteps moved through the cabin, multiple sets deliberate and coordinated. A man's voice muttered something we couldn't make out. Another responded, then silence again followed by a single muffled word. Clear, clear. They thought no one was inside. I held my breath. Maggie buried her face in my shoulder, gripping my coat like a lifeline. And then, just as I thought maybe we were safe, James's voice came faintly from the cabin above. David, don't move, I'm coming. But something was wrong. His voice was off. Flat, almost robotic. Maggie looked up at me, terrified. David, that's not him. The trapdoor handle rattled. Once, twice, slowly, carefully. My pulse hammered in my ears. James. He didn't answer. Only the handle moved again. Then a whisper, low and chilling, seeped through the cracks. Open up, we need to talk. Not James's voice. Not even close. And in that moment, as the cellar door shuddered under a new weight, I understood something with horrifying clarity. Whatever we had run from, whatever had chased us into the snow, whatever wanted the USB so desperately, had finally found us, and it wasn't leaving without taking one of us with it. I held my breath as the trapdoor rattled above us. The whispering voice had returned, low, chilling, unmistakably human. My mind raced, thinking of every warning James had given me. But I couldn't just sit here, not when Rachel might actually be alive and in danger. David, open the door, the voice hissed. I tightened my grip on the USB. Maggie's trembling hands rested on my shoulder. David, we can't just wait, James's voice, clear and commanding. Cut through the fear. No, wait for me. Trust me. They're using tricks, decoys, mimics. The real danger isn't the voice. I swallowed hard and whispered. Okay, James, guide me. The handle rattled again. Then the door lifted slightly. A figure appeared, not one of the sedan's men but smaller. Moving carefully, cautious. I squinted in the dim light. Rachel? I whispered. The figure froze. Then slowly the hood came down. It was her, real, alive, and looking terrified but determined. Dad, it's me, she said, voice shaking. I escaped, But they're still out there. I have the other copy of the footage. I need to hide it, or they'll never stop. I exhaled, relief and terror clashing inside me. I reached for her hand. Thank God, you're alive. Where's James? Rachel's eyes flicked to the ladder. He's upstairs fighting them off. A crashing sound from above made my heart leap. Wood splintered. Footsteps pounded. Then James's voice shouted, "David, Rachel, go now." We scrambled toward the cellar exit on the far side. The USB in my hand felt heavier than ever. Outside, snow had started falling, masking our tracks. We ran through the clearing, branches cutting at our coats. The cabin was behind us. Shadowed figures moving at the windows, but they weren't following. James had bought us time. "Where now?" Maggie asked, breathless. I glanced at Rachel. "You have the other copy?" She nodded. "In my backpack. I memorized the encryption key. If they get either USB, it's over for all of us. I've hidden it in the old mill, the one James mentioned on the road." "Then let's move," I said. We ran across the snow-covered road, hearts pounding. I kept checking behind us. No headlights, no cars. Finally we reached the old mill. Rachel's fingers flew across the keypad, opening a hidden storage panel she'd prepared months ago. She slid both copies inside. "Safe," she said, exhaling sharply. Maggie and I hugged her tightly. Relief washed over me. But there was no time to celebrate. The real danger was still alive. James appeared behind us, bloodied but standing. "You made it," he said simply. His eyes were fierce. "The sedans? They're out. They won't come near the mill. Not for a while. Enough time for us to disappear." I stared at him, torn between joy and lingering fear. "James, how?" "They underestimated me," he said. "I've been inside their network for years. The men outside, mercenaries, hired. They didn't know I'd prepared escape routes, contingencies, decoys. They thought they had us trapped, but I knew where you'd go." Rachel clutched my hand. "So it's over?" James shook his head. "Not entirely. But for tonight, yes. Tonight we survive, and we keep the footage safe." I nodded slowly, thinking about the black USB in my hand, the one Maggie had helped me carry. Every ounce of fear, every chase, every lie led to this moment. Maggie hugged Rachel, tears streaking her face. "I thought we'd lost you," she whispered. Rachel smiled faintly, holding her mother close. "Not tonight." James approached, pulling me aside. "David, you need to understand, that footage isn't just leverage. It exposes corruption, crimes, people who won't hesitate to destroy anyone in their way. You have to stay careful. Never trust anyone blindly. The moment you think it's over, that's when they strike." I nodded grimly. "I understand, but tonight, at least tonight, we're alive. Together." Snow continued falling softly, blanketing the mill, masking our escape. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe, to feel hope. Maggie took my hand. "David, we survived. We really survived." I hugged her tightly, whispering, "Yes, we survived, and we'll make sure nothing they did tonight, nothing will destroy us." Rachel looked at James and me, determination in her eyes. "We can fight this together, but we have to be smart. The world doesn't know what we have yet." James nodded. "And they never will. Not unless we allow it." I held both Maggie and Rachel close, feeling the weight of the past weeks melt, just slightly. The USBs were hidden. The attackers had been evaded, and my family was finally safe. For now, snow fell heavier. The mill silent around us. A quiet, deceptive calm. But inside I knew we had survived something that would haunt us forever. And for the first time that night, I whispered to myself, almost in disbelief, "We're alive. And we have each other. Nothing else matters." Outside the wind howled, but we didn't care. Tonight, Christmas night, we had survived, and somehow, against everything, that was enough.